There's just something about the sound of pads popping as the Cardinals continue Cards Camp 2019 with their second straight day in pads here at State Farm Stadium. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki with you. The first day, well, a little bit, there was some good signs and then some things that Coach Cliff Kingsbury wanted to see cleaned up, but we'll get into that. But always good, MJ, when, as we said yesterday, real football here.
Yeah, and I think it's going to pick up today just from a standpoint of, you got to be cautious on that first day. There's a way to practice. We'll get into some of the details that Coach mentioned to us in the press conference within the last hour. But for the most part, I was impressed with this rookie class, and I know the focus has been on Kyler Murray, but there's other guys stepping up, wide receivers, defensive linemen. So I know the Cardinals have 11 draft picks. Now it's a matter of how many of these guys make the roster, but they're really excited about this draft class.
For those watching us and heading to State Farm Stadium here on this Sunday, there are a couple of players you won't see at practice. Larry Fitzgerald and Terrell Suggs both receiving veteran days off, much like Marcus Gilbert, Chandler Jones, and Corey Peters did on yesterday. But that is typical. We've seen that in previous head coaching regimes here with the Cardinals, and certainly those guys know what to expect, know what's going on. So you won't see number 11, you won't see number 56, but they will be back on the field on Tuesday. But you talked about it, the rookies that have kind of stepped up so far.
Well, I was going to say,
okay, go ahead.
Tomorrow.
That's right, yes.
Tomorrow is our Veterans Day off.
Yes, there is no Cards Cover 2 on Monday. There is no practice on Monday. After 4 straight days on the field, players have the day off, and, well, we have the day off as well, so that's always good.
Anytime that this open practice, Cards Cover 2 will be here live, giving you the latest when it comes to what's happening on the football field.
Yeah, the practice resumes on Tuesday, 3:30 on the afternoon on Tuesday.
Next week, got the red and white practice. That's always a great crowd. By the way, Grialou, they distribute the footballs.
Oh, that's right.
So we'll get into that. But anyways, and then before you know it, we're going to have a preseason game here against the Chargers.
Yeah, it's just
once we get to August.
How quick things happen here once camp begins. A couple of newsworthy items to talk about here as practice gets underway here at State Farm Stadium. It happened late after practice ended, but Robert Nkemdiche has been released. Played only 27 games in 3 seasons. Certainly not a surprise, not a shock. We had talked about it on previous shows, but it is a disappointment because the Cardinals invested a first-round draft pick, a late first-round draft pick, but certainly investing in someone who just never delivered.
Well, listen, I know that people are going to talk about Steve Keim's first-round picks. I get that. But listen, do some research. Look in the NFC West. I mean, it's a crapshoot. I mean, the Cardinals met with Robert Nkemdiche 4 times before they made this selection at 29th overall. Matter of fact, that Monday, Michael Bidwell and Steve Keim flew to L.A. where he was working out, and they had a face-to-face conversation. Michael Bidwell's background is a former prosecutor. Okay, so what Nkemdiche lacked was obviously the passion to play football, accountability, durability, and availability. And there's more to this story when it comes to Nkemdiche. Obviously, the Cardinals were disappointed when he showed up 15 pounds overweight, and he was on thin ice to begin with. They had to make the move. He wasn't respected in the locker room by his teammates. He knew the writing was on the wall, and I guess we'll wish him well, but very disappointing Cardinal career.
Yeah, he had some off-the-field issues as well in the offseason. According to Kingsbury, it's a, quote, performance-based business, and that is why the move was made. The Cardinals wish Nkemdiche well, perhaps a second chance somewhere in the National Football League. And then right before we came on the air here this afternoon, Cardinals made another move, releasing linebacker Matt Longacre, who just arrived to training camp on the 24th. He wasn't here very long, but you subtract those 2 players, MJ, it's 3 open roster spots here, not even a week into training camp.
Yeah, and the Cardinals are off tomorrow, so that means they can bring players in. They always have a ready list, so I do think we'll see some activity maybe tomorrow, if not early part of the week, where they obviously want to bring in some other players. And you look at Longacre, I spoke to him. He was excited to stay in the NFC West. He was excited to play a role on special teams. But obviously the Cardinals decided it was time to move on and try to get somebody else in here.
Special edition of Cards Cover 2 here from State Farm Stadium. Cards Camp 2019 continuing. And look, we have a guest here on the south end zone up on the concourse, the bridge, if you will. B-Train in the house here on Cards Cover 2. Bertrand Berry, former Arizona Cardinal, and of course the co-host of the Red Sea Report, which returns to your airwaves on Tuesday. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. But B-Train, appreciate you joining us. And well, you were out here yesterday, the first padded practice. What stood out to you? You played the game, we didn't.
The one thing that stood out to me, I thought the players played with a lot of energy yesterday. There's going to be mistakes as far as technique because guys are just now getting used to putting the pads on, and you've been all off-season going through the motions with the shorts and shirts and all that kind of stuff. But now it gets real, and guys are going to be tired, they're going to be sore. But I thought yesterday they did a really good job of picking up the offense and the defense and the schemes. I thought there weren't a lot of mistakes. There weren't a lot of mental errors out there, and when you have that, that means guys are locked in, they understand what's important, and I think that's a good sign.
I want to focus in on your position when you played, and that is along the defensive line, because we're seeing some things so far, and a couple of players have really stood out. One is the rookie Zach Allen, who Kingsbury praised earlier today, and then he was also asked about Darius Philon, the former Charger who the Cardinals picked up late in the free agency process, which I think, because of what has happened now with Nkemdiche, could be a huge addition. But when you look at the O-line, D-line drills, because I know you're always front and center for those, who stood out to you during that?
I really liked Allen. I thought his motor was something that you could definitely see it's infectious. When you see one guy out there going, full speed all the time, I think that inspires other guys to go out and want to do the same thing. And of course, when you have Terrell Suggs, you have a veteran out there leading the way. He's going to lead by example. I thought he did a good job of teaching the guys, especially during the one-on-one pass rush, just giving them little tidbits and things that they can do within the game. And a guy like him who has so much experience and so much success, his words carry a lot of weight to the younger guys.
We got a chance to talk to J.R. Sweezy yesterday, and basically the Cardinals replaced him over Mike Iupati, and Iupati's with Mike Slurry up in Seattle right now, so we'll probably see him twice this year. But I like the right side of the line. Marcus Gilbert, obviously a veteran guy, and we know teams try to have a tendency to run to that right side, but Sweezy brought up a point. There's a way to practice, and Cliff, and we're going to get into this a little bit later, said there were too many guys on the ground.
Okay.
So your first time in full pads, what is the etiquette when you're going against your own teammates?
Well, the one thing you want to realize is that you guys have the same helmet on. You may have different colored jerseys on, but ultimately these are going to be the guys that you are dependent on to get to where you want to go in the regular season. So you want to be physical, you want to get your work in, but you don't want to see guys get hurt. And the quickest way to get a guy hurt in training camp is for somebody to be on the ground. You want a nice tempo, you want guys to be going at a nice speed, but you also want guys to be smart. And I think that's the one thing that he talked about. If you're on the ground, it just increases the chances for injury, and you really don't want that during training camp.
We continue here on this special edition of Cards Cover 2 from State Farm Stadium, Cards Camp 2019, as Bertrand Berry joins myself, Craig Grialou, and Mike Jurecki. Here is training camp going on as we speak. Team going through position drills on the second straight day of padded practice. Well, we've got you here. It's a question we ask everyone, and everyone asks, I'm sure, you, but Kyler Murray, what'd you see? What have you heard? What's been impressive?
Well, the one thing I saw was a lot of talent. The guy can spin the ball. It's very clear that there is no issues with him being able to get the ball down the field and push it down the field with a high velocity. The athleticism really jumps off. You see him take off. If a play's busted, you see he has the ability to keep plays going with his feet. And the thing that I saw what was most important is that, yes, he has that ability to run the ball, but he doesn't really want to do that. That's not his first option.
Right.
Usually when you have guys with that kind of ability, they want to take advantage of that first, and you have to teach him to stay in the pocket. Well, he's been well trained thus far in his career to where he's disciplined to stay in the pocket, but if you force him to run the ball down the field, look out.
Now, we talked about Robert Nkemdiche, and I know that you know Robert Nkemdiche. You spent some time with him in the offseason. Obviously, the Cardinals, he fell to number 29. I don't think anyone's going to begrudge it, but when it comes to the player, just couldn't stay healthy. Some freak injuries, the high ankle sprain, the calf injury that kept Fletcher Cox out a few weeks. Mindset-wise, where do you think he's at now that this is a wake-up call?
I don't know if he's there yet, to be quite honest with you. I tried to work with him during the offseason, and it just was not able to come to fruition. And it's really disappointing because you see a guy with so much talent, Mike, a guy that if he had his head on straight, he could really be a major player in this league, but unfortunately that never came to be, and I wish him well. I know the Cardinals hated to do it, but when you don't come in ready to play, you leave them no choice. And this is a profession. This is how you earn your living. This is how you pay your bills and how you provide for your family. And if it's not important enough for you at this point, they can't afford to just wait around for you to get it. And I think they've been patient up to this point, and they finally just came to a conclusion that we're going to have to move on.
You ever seen a guy rehab and gain weight?
No, I've never seen it. It's one of those where the body will tell you all you need to know about a player. If he's ready to play, he's going to look a certain way. And unfortunately, what we saw yesterday was a guy that just was not ready to play football and not contribute to the Arizona Cardinals.
Big picture, the current Cardinal players, specifically the defense, because it's one thing to read about them, another thing to see them up close as you did yesterday and you get a chance to today. Anyone maybe that you needed to see for yourself or kind of get a different look, or someone that you're familiar with? Let's see what he comes into shape or how he looks going up against certain guys.
I don't really pay a lot of attention to veterans because I truly believe that veterans know what they're supposed to do, and they're locked in. They're in cruise control. They know how to get through a practice. They know how to get through camp. But for me, I'm always looking at the young guys. How are the young guys adapting? Are they paying attention to what the veterans are doing, and are they still in that mode to where everything is 100 miles an hour, or do they have enough savvy to know when to pick and choose their spots? I thought for the younger guys here, they did a great job of that, and there weren't a lot of mental errors. I was behind Vance Joseph a lot in practice, and I didn't hear him screaming at a lot of guys in the secondary, which
that's good to hear.
Which you're usually used to hearing, because if there's miscommunications, it's his job to make sure that that's adjusted.
B-Train's with us, Bertrand Berry. Of course, we're going to be doing a full year round-to-round coverage when it comes to the Red Sea Report, so make sure you tune in. You know, I love the fact that they're going back to this 3-4, and unfortunately Hassan Reddick had scope jobs, so he's going to be out. Hopefully he's ready for the opener. But Dennis Gardeck, he made it as an undrafted free agent, kind of kamikaze style, played 385 snaps on on special teams, didn't play a single snap. Now he's getting a chance to play next to Jordan Hicks. What did you see from him? Well,
the one thing I saw was a guy that knew the playbook, and I don't think a knowledge of the game is going to be a big issue for him. I think for him, it's just getting that game experience and being able to get up to the speed with the starters, because playing in the backup role and playing with the starters, it's a completely different speed. And I think for him, he's going to have to adjust his mindset. Now I'm not just a special team guy. I'm going to have to come in and contribute on first, second, and third down possibly.
We'll get you out with one final question, and it's not about any current Cardinal players, but a former Cardinal player who is on the field here this afternoon. Kurt Warner, your former teammate, the Cardinals quarterback, Ring of Honor member, who is doing work with the NFL Network, which is broadcasting here this afternoon. And it's always good, one, to see Kurt, but you got any Kurt Warner stories that maybe you haven't told, or a play or a game or something that happened that has always stood out to you? Suitable for air, I guess?
Well, no, because with Kurt, he's always above fray. I mean, he's one of those guys. I love Kurt. He's one of my favorite teammates of all times. He was a teammate of mine in St. Louis as well as here, so I knew him before he got to Arizona, and one of my best games of my career, unfortunately, was against Kurt Warner. And I hate that. I hate the fact that it had to come at his expense, because he's such a great man, and I have so much respect for him. But having that game that I had at Sun Devil Stadium in 2004 is something that we really never talked about.
4 times?
4 times.
4 sacks.
In
4
other
times.
words, and we'll tell the story on the plane ride home, Tom Coughlin taps him on the shoulder and said, "We're going to Eli Manning." And obviously, Pat McAdoo didn't make the right decision, but Eli started pretty much every single game. But so we can credit Bertrand Berry for the arrival of Kurt Warner to the desert. And matter of fact, the Chicago Bears brought him in for a third-string option.
Wow.
B-Train, thank you very much.
Hey, I do what I can for the Cardinals. I'm all about team. I'm a team player, and whatever I can do to help the team win, I'm all about that.
B-Train, we'll appreciate a couple of minutes here on this special edition of Cards Covered 2. We'll let you go down on the field, catch up with Warner, and watch the rest of today's practice.
Appreciate it, fellas. Always a pleasure.
Good seeing you, bro.
B-Train again will join myself, Mike Jurecki, coming up on Tuesday for the Red Sea Report, 11 a.m. on Tuesdays on 6:20 a.m. Of course, all season long. Our season debut coming up this Tuesday. But as we continue watching this practice here from State Farm Stadium, Another rookie, but this now, MJ, going to the offensive side, and this is a wide receiver in Keyshawn Johnson that we have talked a lot about. And finally, Kingsbury was asked about him earlier today. And according to Kingsbury, Johnson has, quote, picked up the system really, really quickly. He's been very impressed by Johnson. He does have to get stronger. But of the three rookie wide receivers, MJ, it is not a stretch to say that Johnson is ahead of Andy Isabella and Hakeem Butler.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And we've talked about this in off-season workouts. We got word that he was flashing. And, go back to draft night when the Cardinals made that pick on the third day. And Steve Keim said he was one of the better route runners in the country. And then Cliff said today he had him ranked second overall when it came to route running. So he finds ways to get open. He's tall and lean. Yes, he's going to have to add some weight. I'll tell you, that matchup with him and Patrick Peterson, it's fascinating. And yesterday, Patrick was draped on him, no flag, and he still caught the football.
Oh, he out-wrestled Peterson for the football.
He did. So nothing against Isabella and Hakeem Butler, but clearly there's other receivers ahead of him, Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald, I think Demir Bird, Farrell Cooper, Trent Sherfield plays on teams. Now, again, we need to let all this play out. But they're thrilled with Keyshawn Johnson.
It is going to be a fascinating position battle to watch, as right now the wide receivers going through drills again. Larry Fitzgerald not practicing, but you see he's involved, standing right there with the other coaches, David Rye and Jerry Sullivan. Right now it's Rye backpedaling and then Sullivan kind of directing traffic, and that's invaluable to have not only Sullivan but Rye and Fitz. You've got three teachers, if you will, to teach here these young wide receivers.
I don't know if our viewers can see it, but they have this red line on both sides, or at least on this side of the field, and that's where these guys realize where they have to cut their route at a certain point, whether it's an out route, whether it's a slant route, whether it's a go route, and so that gives them an idea where they want them to line up in this offense. And I haven't seen that. They had it in Tempe during the off-season workouts, so this is something new we haven't seen before. But you see that red line, that's where they want them to make their break, whether it's a go route, a hitch route, slant route, or an out route.
Yeah, it is something to pay attention to. And also looking at Christian Kirk, number 13, wearing a GoPro on top of his helmet. Pay attention a little bit later on this afternoon or tomorrow morning on azcardinals.com. Unfiltered with Christian Kirk will be posted, and you can kind of get a different vantage point of what practice looks like on the field from a player's point of view. And certainly Christian Kirk, maybe the number one wide receiver before all is said and done, but certainly had a great rookie season before getting hurt, and I think the Cardinals are expecting much better things from him, and I know he is as well.
Not so fast, Grialou. We've got a Hall of Famer on the roster. Last year you brought it up, and I thought, all right, I know he's connected with Josh Rosen, probably better than some other guys, just from maybe off-season workouts. But we still have a Hall of Famer on the roster. Let's not push him out the door.
Oh, I'm not pushing. He's getting pushed, though.
Yeah.
And that's good. Not that they're someone
Sure.
that's an heir apparent.
But we know that I think that the guys that lead with targets and catches this year, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, David Johnson.
Yeah.
And I don't know in what order.
And, of course, we would love to see David Johnson utilized a lot more than he was last season. And, of course, as a wide receiver. A couple of other items before we head on out of here on this afternoon. And it's a question that we've gotten a lot, and it's about special teams, specifically the kicker. Cardinals only brought one kicker in. It's Zane Gonzalez. And Kingsbury said that was by design because they've been impressed with Gonzalez. He had an outstanding spring, and there's been really no reason to bring in another kicker. He did have his moments late last season at Green Bay, at Seattle. The former Arizona State standout is your Cardinals kicker until otherwise.
Yeah, and he's got a strong leg. He obviously had a groin injury in Cleveland, and that was the reason why he was released, and the Cardinals were thrilled to have him. Now, when you start looking at it, though, Craig, if this team is going to be close in the fourth quarter, he's going to have to make some pressure kicks. We know that position is fluid, and you have to make the kicks in pressure moments, and he did miss an extra point, a couple field goals, but he had a game winner late in the season, so that was nice, or at least it tied a game. So from that standpoint, they're comfortable and confident with him, but we're only going to talk about him when the bright lights are on.
Yeah, and it's special teams because you don't really talk about special teams unless something bad happens, and that's never good.
And I like what Jeff Rodgers has done. If they went from 32nd under Amos Jones to like 15th, if they even get up to the top 10, whether we know Andy Lee's a weapon, if Gonzalez can make these 40 to 50 yarders, because you want to get field position. And then the coverage units, I think if there's one area that he wants to see improvement, it's the coverage units.
In case Cardinals fans might have missed it last night as the NFL Network continues counting down its top 100 players. Yesterday we told you Larry Fitzgerald made the list. Well, Patrick Peterson also on the list, checking in at number 46. 8 seasons in the league, 8 years he's been on that list.
And I think he'll be 9 for 9. And I think there's one more guy. I wish David Johnson was in this conversation, but there's a lot of good running backs in the NFL. I think Chandler Jones will be next at some point.
And we teased it. You teased it as far as the footballs that are been distributed, will be distributed coming up on Monday around the state of Arizona as far as the Surprise and Delight campaign. Monday, July 29th, they'll be around town, if you will, and not just Maricopa County, but throughout the state of Arizona. 3 of the 100 footballs will be gold, and of those, one of the 3 gold balls, the recipient will receive 2019 season tickets. So go out, azcardinals.com, to figure out where those footballs. There'll be some hints distributed out there, but this coming Monday, tomorrow, is when that all begins. And, of course, the next training camp practice comes your way on Tuesday, 3:30 here at State Farm Stadium, and that's when we'll rejoin you here on this special continuing coverage of Cards Camp 2019. As we say so long on this Sunday, special thanks behind the scenes, Grayson Choi, Jim Omahundro. For my partner, Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. This has been coverage of Cards Camp 2019.